For sure. Interesting point. And I was going to ask you this because I honestly, I Googled as much as I could. I wanted to try to find some video of you catching to just kind of see what, your styles and stances and things like that were. And I think a lot of times, and again, maybe more so in kind of the youth arena that we're in, we deal with so many coaches that are kind of, this is how I did it, so this is how I'm going to teach it. Talk a little bit about that adjustment for you. Maybe all these kind of new stances, new styles, we're moving the ball now, not sticking the ball, all these types of things are probably different from what you did. Talk a little bit about A, what your style was, because I'm just curious, and then B, how you've had to adapt and grow, and maybe how coaches can learn from that.
Yeah, I mean, I caught in traditional stance. There wasn't a whole lot of talk of loading the glove to the ground. There wasn't really talk of one knee till, I had Tanner Swanson was our minor league catching coordinator when I went to Minnesota. So that was, and the year before I had Ryan Cienko, who's now with the Tigers. And those two are the first two that kind of introduced it to me. And I was like, get out of my face. I'm not listening to this. I'm not doing it. And it's hard because I had success, catching in traditional. Mm-hmm. And it's always hard. It's always hard when there's change, and I tell people this, if we were, think about how much trouble we'd be in if we were still catching like Yogi used, like his stance, you know what I mean? Or the game's always evolving. It's always changing. And for me, like I said, I caught in traditional. But the one thing I did do, and when I identify traditional stances, it's, are you traditional to left knee down or are you traditional to right knee down? So similar to like Max Stassi, I was traditional, but that right knee always sunk down. So when I was making the catch, I was on one knee, just because, especially breaking ball, I was, one of our pillars is compressing to the ground. And that was something that I did, innately, because I knew I had to get lower. Right. So it kind of it changed towards 18 and 19. I started using left knee down in 18, and then 19 I used left knee down. And I tried blocking a little bit. At that point, I was catching Jordan Zimmerman quite a bit, and he could pinpoint accuracy, command. So I didn't really have to. Blocking wasn't too big of a concern for me. But once I got into in the coaching side, it was. You have to adapt. Like, you have to make a change. You have to see what's going on. You have to understand the numbers. But the biggest problem that I've seen with the whole one knee is that we're not teaching these younger players how to do it correctly. And when I say correctly is positioning the body to allow it to work properly, right? So what we're doing is we're putting guys on one knee and we're anchoring by not putting them in the right position. What I've found is that if you can just set these guys up in the right position to move horizontally or to receive or to keep the entire body engaged, they actually move just as well as they would in traditional. And it's a lot of, like I said, I caught traditional, right? So to say that anything is wrong with traditional would be taboo for somebody who caught it. But there's a lot of stuff in traditional that just doesn't work out right now with increased velocity, with increased spin. What's real versus what's not real. And unless you sit down and you truly break down the video and you watch what's happening, and I've done this because I'm trying to prove myself wrong that one knee is worse than traditional, right? And I think a lot of people just say, oh, we're just going to do one knee because that's what everybody else is doing. Well, if you're not trying to prove one or the other wrong all the time and finding ways to improve it, it's a disservice to the players. It's a disservice to yourself. It's a disservice to your organization. So I'm always trying to prove myself wrong, like left knee down, like, no, we can't throw out of that. Prove why you can't throw out of that. And then I see Jonah throw out of that, and I'm like, okay, maybe you can. Now let's figure out body angles, body positions to help him throw even better. So again, like if you're not – in this game, if you're not open-minded, you're not growing, you're going to be out. That's just the reality of it, because you have to continue to learn. You have to continue to grow. And guess what? When ABS comes, when in 10 years, I'll be looking back on this stuff saying, can you believe I was teaching this or that? Because it's going to change, and I'm okay with that. But at this present time, I feel really prepared for what we're doing. So that's kind of my spiel on the stances.
Yeah, for sure. And it's same thing. I mean, obviously I never did any of this stuff catching. I mean, I utilized a one knee, when I was nobody on base at times and things like that. But the thought of doing it with runners on base was like taboo. I mean, you didn't even like think twice about it. And it's interesting though, because, I've been doing this, with the Catching Academy for about 7 years now. And I have some guys that I've had for 7 years. I mean, some of my guys were like 11 and they're kind of now seniors in high school. And we kind of joke around together about how, the things I do have changed a lot, and I think that's one thing as a coach is always figuring out what works and what doesn't. And, hey, sometimes we're wrong and that's okay. Or sometimes we didn't know and that's okay. And I